Fellow travelers, join us on a journey into dissonance, a sense-making sojourn through humanist nightmare fuel. If you are receiving this transmission, then you too are part of the resistance.
I see you.
Hey travelers, welcome to Humanist Nightmare Fuel's inaugural Solstice stream. In today's stream, Dr. Siraj and I discuss holidays. For thousands of years, indigenous people from around the world have celebrated the organic shifts that occur in life and nature, good or bad. These celebrations connected our ancestors to both the planet we all share and each other. In our haste to evolve as a species, have we made holidays so profit-oriented that we can no longer appreciate small gains? As anxiety, depression, and suicide rates rise considerably during the winter holidays, we must examine how the two are related. In a consumerist way of thinking, what we buy shapes the world. But how does the need to express our love through expensive gifts shape us? And who truly benefits from encouraging this need? Are we consumers or are we the consumed? You be the judge as we listen in now.
How you doing, everyone? This is Dr. Siraj, and
Nadine Hueros.
we are here and joining you on this winter solstice, the evening of December 21st, 2022. I know people like to say the year of our Lord, but
Who still says that?
is it like, I mean, when they say things officially, they're like the year of our Lord 2022, but I mean, is it? Are we sure? Or is it something different? Or is it just like a construct that we created, to keep time, to keep ourselves on a trajectory, right? Like maybe it's not the year of our Lord, maybe it's just our year. Yeah. And the solstice is one way of marking time in that context, and it just so happens to fall on the pagan calendar as Yule, right? But it also, the solstice, the two solstices, I don't know, solstices, and the two
Somebody get in the comments.
equinoxes or equini, I don't know, but it just sounds awkward, right? But the two equinoxes, I mean, they exist for a particular reason, but we'll get into that. But here we are, folks. This is Humanist Nightmare Fuel, or I guess we could say Humanist Nightmare Yule 2022 for this year, right? And we are getting this evening into some ideas around what this time of year represents, but more so than represents, right? Like manifests as in our culture, in the zeitgeist, in our society, how it makes us feel, why so many people like to kill themselves at this time of year, why so many people have anxiety and get sick and are just stressed out and then get depressed this time of year, and why people go into debt this time of year, and why consumption, the act of consuming, makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside this time of year more so than at any other time of year. I mean, I definitely like Amazon Prime, like, I mean, it's and I mean, I am prone to that, so I have to mind that, right? And it's everybody has their own things. It's not just like random stuff. It's like in my context, if I get on some kind of kick, it's because I'm depressed about something. I'm not really dealing with the context of those stressors or negative emotions or negative thoughts that are entering into my life. So I want to I want to avoid that
Yeah.
stuff, right? So that can be opioids, that can be food, that
I
can
was gonna say that.
be
Yeah.
buying stuff,
Yeah.
that can be I hate to say this one, but like playing Minecraft, like
Damn.
but it's really good. It helps me to like, but sometimes I'm like, it's
Yeah.
I'm like just
Numbing
gone,
out.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
numbing out, and it's not okay. So yeah, that's this time of year, but this time of year represents other stuff too, man. It represents a closing.
Mm.
It represents the death of our cycle, of our life cycle, and our kind of, like seasonal life cycle, which is essentially something that helps us to enter into the process of growing things, right? Like, so if,
Mm.
I've got some really good avocados in my fridge right now,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to having them for breakfast, right? And
Sounds good.
those had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And those things are dependent on our adherence to these seasons,
Mm. Yeah.
just like there are seasons of our life. And so there are people that look at this time of year with a different kind of idea. It's like the closing.
Mm.
Tonight is the longest night.
Mm.
It is dark for longer now than ever. And you and me as like weirdos, we love it. So we're
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. It's
yes.
dark and it's
But
cold and it's
yeah,
damp.
then what we're also going to do, which we'll talk about later in this stream, is do a Yule circle ceremony on the 23rd,
Yeah.
which is when we'll get into the reasons for that as well.
Hmm.
It is the last time the sun is, I guess you could refer to it as descendant,
Hmm.
before it is then ascendant, and it's
Mm.
it's starting to get higher in the sky, right? So this is the low winter
Yeah.
sun, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
that's the Friday night, and we're going to celebrate that. We're not going to stream that. That's going to be,
Yeah.
because I even thought about that, but sometimes, folks, you got to do your rituals for you,
Yeah. Sometimes
right?
it's a close circle.
Yeah, maybe next year we'll stream that, but sometimes it's just there. And it's a time, because it's a time of introspection, esotericism, and intention, right?
Yes.
So we're kind of going into that space. So, Nadine, I know for you, this time of year is about making sure that your children get the gifts that they want no matter what. And that's the important thing for this year, right?
Hell no.
So let's talk
Listen.
about that, because you made a decision this year, you and your
Yeah.
kids together.
Yeah.
What's that about?
So I've been wanting to just kind of reconnect to celebrating, and um Christmas used to be something that was Christmas, like that was like something that was like it was great, right? And then as I got older and I started to, well, not even just with like when I got old. Well, yeah, when I got older, but then especially when I had kids of my own, like I just saw it from a different perspective. It's like you grow up and it's like your responsibility to give presents and like make sure also that the lights still stay on and like everything that was happening before, kids growing out of stuff, like, but also everything around is just like hyper buy, 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 buy. Everything that they watch has ads with everything they never wanted, but now they do. And so I started to like really not like this time of year. And then
Mm.
also, not really understanding, like I wanted to get into the meaning of like, well, why am I feeling so depressed this time of year? Like, and So I talked to the kids about that. I think it's important for us because they've seen, they've seen me in depression and like they can tell when that's happening. So I'd rather talk about it than just kind of let it creep up. And my kids, I just talked to them and I was like, listen, I don't want to do presents this year. What do you guys think? Like, this is why I'm feeling that way, which is just basically, it's so much pressure on me to get all of these presents that, when really I need to just maintain what we have. And, also, what
Enjoy
else is
that.
Christmas and what, right. And also, what else, not even like, what else is it about? Because for them, it's like, they're still very much attached to Christmas, in and of itself. And I just wanted to kind of see if they're willing to be open. Like, what do you
Mhm.
guys think? You want to kind of get in on this? And they were kind of like a little bit like, well, yeah, okay, they could understand from the perspective of like, well, we don't want you to be overwhelmed and like depressed and like, we definitely don't want that for you, mom. But then they really started to get into understanding like, no, it's not gonna suck. Like, I promise. We have birthdays right around these holidays too. Like we have just like different community events to where we connect. We have plans, like, we kind of put more into it. Before it was just about Christmas, it was just about presents, like presents, like that was the main attraction. Now we're like, we're gonna play Castle Crashers. We're gonna like watch holiday movies. We have our cocoa. We're gonna go outside and rollerblade. We're gonna have a fire. Like we're gonna connect. We're just gonna spend time together and connect and appreciate each other's time and company and presence. And it's not like they didn't. It's crazy too because at the school they kind of got a little something and like some relatives sent a little something, but we've already opened those things. Like it's not like I don't really want to associate one day or even like the whole Yule, season, like festival, like the 21st through the 1st. I just want to make it about something else. And like I'm
Mhm.
really very happy that the kids were like, okay, let's try. I think I value your mental health more. And like, I can remember how things were before and how they're different now. Like, so I was really worried about how they were going to accept that. And they got on board with me. Like, they really valued, like, yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
good that things are healthy. And we're also going to have a blast.
Yeah, and so this is so we're getting at a few things here. We're
Mm.
getting at a few things here, right? We're getting at the idea of the larger idea of the capitalist dream
Mm.
of life, right? Which is essentially every possible celebratory option that we have
Yeah.
as a society, you make the most bank on it that you can, right?
Yeah.
And obviously there are some that are um more than others, but there are like niche industries like Easter has its own, like there's crazy stuff. People buy lots of new clothes, people buy lots of food, people buy a lot of, stuff to get into, like especially in the Christian diaspora, there's a lot of expenditure around he is risen, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. um there's 4th of July. Tell me money isn't spent during that time. It may not be for toys or clothes, but it's for many different, like, monster truck, like, tits and rock and roll celebration. And you need massive TVs and lots of fireworks and lots of beer and lots of meat,
Yeah. I was just going to say, you
right?
got to fire up the grill
You got
with
to have
lots of
all
meat.
that stuff. And so there's a lot of that there. Halloween, I mean, That's self-explanatory. Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then we have Christmas, Christ Mass, the Mass of Christ, the remembrance and meditation on the coming of the Messiah. And we like are in lines at stores wanting to murder other human beings. Right? Like
You're like behind an elderly person, like walking very slow with a cart, and you're like, okay, I should not be feeling these feelings that I'm
I
feeling
know,
right now.
I know, I know,
I
I know.
shouldn't. I should be able to slow down and
Because I
let
got to
this
get
woman
to the
go where
next
she's gotta go.
store to do something. So okay, so we have that. We have that. That's our canvas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's paint some specifics onto that. I mean, not canvas, but that's like our back. That's our landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to start putting little things on that landscape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have the feeling of being loved, appreciated, and valued by other people based on the happiness and gratitude they will give you for what you buy them.
Yeah.
That is your children, your friends, your like family members, your community, your boss,
Yeah.
your like coworkers. I remember that was like a whole thing. There was like
Yeah.
every Christmas I had to like buy all. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
what? I
Yeah.
hate most of you. Like, I don't want to do this. I mean, it's crazy,
I
right?
told people, like, I was just like, I let people know, like, I'm not doing presents, so like don't feel
Yeah.
obligated to get anything
Yeah.
for us this year.
And then Christmas also fuels the giving industry, which is, hey, you guys are all spending on a lot of shit. What about the marginalized people? What
Yeah.
about them? Let's give them lots of money. So people make like an annual, like this is a giving season. So people give, and that's like millions of multi-million dollar industry, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's not for profit. And then there is the usual stuff. There's decorating, there's uh tree people. They make so much money now. They have tree farms. Like they grow trees all year.
Yeah.
Because that's, imagine, right? They grow, and imagine if someone at the end of the year was like, we're canceling Christmas. They'd be like, oh my God, we are
Damn.
broke. We're bankrupt because we've spent all our money to grow these trees and
Yeah.
to cultivate them. And now you're not going to buy them. We need to like clean like millions in order to break even and shit, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you have that.
Jeez.
But then you also have this kind of more insidious thing, right? Which is, it's a warm, fuzzy community, like awesome time, and it's almost feels like everyone, like, during Christmas, like everyone is okay, right? Like it's all right. And the reality is the poor, right? Like little Kim said, what was it? Like, we got to keep the wretched close by, like that, that's not the exact like verse, but like that's good, like it was, I mean, I can't
Close by.
yeah, I can't
Yeah,
do
she
it
did
like
say so.
Kim does it, right? So
Yeah,
like,
no, I
so
can't
so
even.
so you know um those people who are on the precipice of collapse the rest of the year are not only continuing to be, but perhaps worse, because end of year stuff always gets tight. Everything closes down during Christmas. So if you have any kind of issue like you do at any other time, like electricity, like a payment for something that doesn't go through, whatever, you can't even talk to people because they gone for the month of December. I mean, even if they're still there at their desk, they there, right? So you have that, and yet on top of those stressors that those individuals continue to feel, and by the way, there's lots of people who are like super sad right now that I speak to and we speak to at the county jail. Now, we're working with clients at Alachua County, which is the county we live in, and Marion County, which is one county south of us.
Yeah.
And at both those jails, and they ain't getting shit for Christmas. Like that, it's like Krampus is gonna come give you a lump of coal for Christmas. Those dudes get coal every day, and Christmas is a
Just
double
another day.
helping. You get two pieces of coal. Yeah. So that is going on, and yet the people who live those realities also have the added weight of the pressure of Christmas capitalism, right?
Yeah.
And the expectations that exist around that. And that, folks, is why, as Nadine shared, the idea of the depression stemming from the stress and anxiety that emerges around Christmas. That's why that happens, folks. Just wanted to make sure you all understood that kind of very, very precisely, right? It's awful. That weight is awful. And the feeling that some people like have, that most people have, of that fight or flight kind of reaction that happens, that level of adrenaline fueled stress, to be like, I've got to find a way to make this happen.
Yeah.
And everything is still on the edge of falling apart. That's horrible. That's a horrible. This Christmas sucks.
You worry too, because it's like the kids feel that, if it's like, oh, it's tight, but are we gonna have a Christmas? Is it a possibility? Like, what's it about? And that's why, it was important that I said something, like, let's discuss the elephant in the room. And I realized, like, I didn't realize this when I was a kid. So how, unless I'm honest with my kids, like, how will they understand from this point of view? And also, I don't want them to be those adults that are stressing, trying to like pull something like out of their ass, like that isn't necessarily possible like throughout the year, or even if it is, like, but why? What's the, like, what is the reason? What's the purpose?
Why are you feeling driven to do this? And the reality is that it is, I mean, look, here's the thing, folks. Like, we don't want to bring our social justice-y, decolonizing, like, dismantle the system, wet blanket selves, and wrap ourselves all over the warm and fuzziness of Christmas. But that's precisely what we're going to do tonight, right? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
As much as capitalism is an oppressive, that is the primary oppressive, like, beyond racism, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you look at something awful, how about slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was slavery as widespread as it was because of racism?
No.
It's not that it was widespread because people were just like, man, I hate Black people, and I hate that they live in an entire continent. I want to go to that place and I want to break those people, and I hate them and I want to make them suffer. No, it wasn't about oppressing. I'm sure many people enjoyed that process because of racism.
Yeah.
Like throwing slaves off of a boat into the ocean because they were sick, but not like they could recover, but they were like, you're the bad batch. We don't want to get the rest of the batch sick.
Yeah.
So we're going to throw.
See, that's
so
it right there. That's
yeah,
it right there. The bad batch.
the bad
Like,
batch.
that's
Right.
what was the driver.
Yeah. But that racism is strong in that context of slave oppression. But the reason slavery was so widespread and so, I hate to use the word, but successful,
Yeah.
is because it was capitalism that drove it. It was that money was being made literally hand over fist, meaning as I pick cotton or mine for, I don't know, iron, or dig crop fields, instead of like, we can't afford to just, have the oxen plow the field. So let's just have slaves do it. Right. And because somehow though that was cheaper, like that was capitalism at every step.
Do they have to pay the ox?
They don't have to pay. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
No. They don't have to pay the ox. They don't have to pay either the ox or the black person. That sentence actually just came out of my mouth. Like that is a reality. That's a real thing. They want, and now Ron DeSantis, by the way, folks, just giving you a heads up, he wants to deny the discussion of such a thing in schools to provide a real sense of what this country's heritage was built upon. And he wants to make it like probably, you could lose your job as an educator for talking about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or
And
woke topics.
Yeah, and wants to make it like it's happening. Like,
yeah, it's happening. I mean, he's
pushing even farther.
Yeah. He's gonna get some momentum, but we'll come back to Governor DeSantis at another time. But for right now, capitalism is awful, and capitalism drove something like slavery. It is also driving our social demise. Like that idea, when people say there is that widening gap between the rich and the poor, right? And the middle class is disintegrating.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. I don't do it like this. I do it like this because there are people who are elevating, and as the middle disintegrates, it falls into poor.
Yeah.
Hope there's enough room there, everybody, because we're going to be joining you soon, right? And that's the problem, is that is happening because capitalism is like a ravaging infection. It consumes you.
Yeah.
And you burn with a fever like fire. That is the existence of capitalism. And Christmas is the crown jewel of the capitalist enterprise. There is nothing else that drives capitalism in this country as much as Christmas. There are concerts, there's the movie industry, there's housing, there's cars, there's fashion, there's appliances, there's all those things. But folks, Christmas is the fucking king daddy of all that shit. It says, hey, y'all love that stuff? Do it more this month.
Christmas
or
is like,
save yourself all year so you can do it this month.
Christmas is like that dude, like in the back of his trunk, like, oh, what you want, what you need, I got it all for you right here. Pop your trunk and everything. Like, I got it all. Like, I have stuff in my socks. Like,
Big
I got
Daddy
everything
Klaus,
you could ever
man.
need.
Yeah. Big Daddy Klaus rolls into town and he says, what y'all need?
And it's like everybody either tries to get on the train of like profiting off of that or feed into, someone
Or
else
no, or
profiting off of
be
that.
profited off of.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yes.
Basically. Yeah. There are two
Yeah.
kinds of people in this world: those who profit
Food.
and those who are profited off of. So okay. Is this stream just going to be a buzzkill? No, it's not going to be, because we, by using our real world experimental space, our laboratory of practice, which is Nadine and her children. And folks, let me just go ahead and tell you this, right? These are not children that are like, I understand, mom. We've known how it was in the past few years. We definitely want to help you. No, folks, they're like 11 down to 3, right? And a couple of like nice little 7 and 9 like in there. These are not people that you can just say, I think I want to try a little something different for Christmas this year. This would like, you just focus on your 3 to 11 year olds and tell me how that would come off, right? And if you can be honest about it. So this is a testament to Nadine parenting her children for a solid several years following dark times
Yeah.
prior to those years. And this is where these children have come to. So, a silent applause for Nadine to be able to actually do that, because I would lay money down that the majority of you with your kids couldn't make that happen. Like, it would have to be something, I don't know. You'd have to lie. You'd have to say, like, everything, like, we're, an asteroid is going to be falling into the earth soon, so we can't buy stuff right now. So I don't know. You couldn't do it.
But either way, I was worried because, like, either way, like, I'm like, are they going to be depressed? Like, are we going to be twiddling our thumbs? But then I'm like, no, like, okay, let's make plans. Like, somebody thought some time ago, like, hey, let's like make Christmas about buying shit. So why can't we just make it a new thing? And I included them. That's what I think helped too. Yes, well, yeah, definitely. It was, like, there have been other things, like other difficult things that we've come through, and it was important. It all got us to here, but still, I was concerned, like, is it gonna suck? And then, but so I just let them in on it, like, hey, like, but like, if it's not just about this thing over here, like, what else could it be about? And I like help to like spark their imagination too. Like, what else can we create?
Well, by all means, Miss Poirot, spark our imagination collectively, and let's go into what else this can be about. Let's do that. That's what we do with everything on this stream. How could it be different? How could this nightmare fuel that exists be different? So we take a more humanistic approach, right? Christmas is nightmare fuel for humanists.
Yeah.
Because it is a cruel season. It is a cruel season, right? So let's start going through what we're going to be talking about right now, right? Like, we wanted to kind of arrive at it with this concept of no heart, no depth, right? Like this season, I remember when I was younger. So when we were the age of our children now, I remember that there was more heart in Christmas. It just felt like that because there wasn't so much. I remember gathering with people.
Yeah.
I remember food, but I don't remember like presence and things being the focus of it.
Yeah.
Like there was certainly like, like, I mean, in one sense also because I'm not, like, I mean, I immigrated here, so I, how do you say that? I emigrated here. I am an immigrant. So, and a good portion of my Christmas buildup of childhood didn't exist because I was not here during those years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was here as an older child, and so it wasn't like, I am programmed for Christmas consumption. It was just basically like, someone was like, this day you're gonna get stuff. I'm like,
Oh,
well,
cool.
for real? Like, wait, well, like, why? I don't understand. Well, it's
Yeah.
Christmas and we buy stuff for that time. I'm like, this is awesome. So, as one example, I am someone who was then conditioned, but not to the point of being an asshole, but I was conditioned to like understand and set expectations for Christmas, right? Which is why I don't really like do that now. Like I really just get what I like all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
just rather than, because folks, you gotta like, you can't wait for the vacation or for Christmas. You can't wait for these certain times to just be able to cut loose. Like, you got to do that all the time
yeah,
and buckle down all the time.
yeah,
You kind of have to do it all the time, because otherwise this world is going to make you, if you're willing to like just you're like, you will be taken advantage of and given like less opportunity to just like cut loose, right? So it's not a good way to establish the way we construct our lives, especially relative to our work, right? So anyway, we go into this idea of the Christian colonizing of our minds, right? So here's how Christianity, which has, kind of been a form of, like, everyone wants to deny that this is a Christian nation, but there's so much that goes into how we think and live that is Christian. Even, and we just accept it because that's just the way society is constructed. And here's a Christian and Victorian concept. He who does not work shall not eat. That's so insidious. It cuts so deep.
Yeah.
So literally, people who do not have the training, the schooling, the initial capital, the skill sets that come with privilege, if they don't have all that stuff and they can't work the way that people like work, literally like are at risk of starvation.
Yeah.
Like, so that concept is still true to this day, and that's how Christianity has set things up.
And it doesn't really speak to like how a lot of times people do work and still can't eat. Like, that's a reality
it
too.
Scales up. It's a reality in the sense that you work, but you can't eat because you aren't part of the equation where you had the privilege to be able to work at a certain level.
Yeah.
Which not only affords you food, but consistent electricity, healthcare, a car, the ability to put gas in a car, the ability to, go places and do things and enrich yourself so that you can continue to evolve as a human being.
Yeah.
You don't get to. And that is something that is like, there is a cruelty to the Christian like philosophical base, and therefore throughout the Christian diaspora there's always so much suffering that exists in spaces that are organized around those kind of concepts. And another way that basically manifests in our lives is essentially the idea of Christian guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that
Yeah.
somehow exists. Like if you, I saw in certain capacities, like in my time with the idea of in my time exploring and living through Christianity, especially landing in the space of fundamentalist Christianity, which is to certain extents synonymous with Southern Christianity because it's like very heavy Baptist and Pentecostal.
Mm-hmm.
And, this idea of the prosperity gospel creeped in that basically, if you're not prospering, which means money,
Yeah.
you're
Then
not
something's
right
wrong
with
with you.
God,
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yes.
right?
Yes.
So the
Oh, that's the
idea,
worst.
yeah, and so you tell me how that translates because I know you've experienced it, how that translates into the Christian guilt of if I'm not able to buy all these things that my children want, then I don't really love them enough
Then I'm a
and
piece
I'm
of
not
shit.
good enough. I
Yeah.
didn't make it happen,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
why layaway exists, which is why
And
debt exists.
it's crazy too that I felt that way because I even when I was a child, I always like there of course my mom bought us presents. We always knew what the presents were because we picked them out. Like we picked one present each and like I think we wrapped it ourselves and stuff. But other aspects of uh like or my mom might have wrapped it sometimes actually, but like other aspects of Christmas, like let's say the dishes that I wanted or the decorations that I wanted, like if I wanted different things decorated or whatnot. And like I always created that. I was the one that created that for my family, like really like brought that Christmas cheer like during this season, really, like all the way to New Year's, it was always like really following something else, which I know now obviously was is like the pagan calendar. But like I was the one that created that for our family. So I guess that was kind of my conditioning because I was like, if I want to like create some sort of feeling like if because we don't have it, like I knew exactly what our situation was, then I have to make it. And but then when I at first was like doing Christmas with my kids, and it wasn't just me either, it was also what I like who I've been married, so like whoever I was, or even just in a relationship, but like whoever I was with also like taking into account like their beliefs and their like about this season and like how it's celebrated, and a lot of that same drive, like even more so than what was in me, but like I created it too. Like I was like on board, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna, go above and beyond and really deck it out and really do this and show them like a traditional,
Yeah,
holiday.
yeah,
And but it's
yeah,
crazy like why
yeah,
how I got sucked in still, even though mine was something else.
yeah. So that's a really important point because that also brings up another aspect of what's imposed on us relative to Christmas. There's a macro cultural, macro social conditioning, but there's
Mm-hmm.
also family conditioning in the form of tradition and rituals that you're right. You have to like enter into. Like Christmas became a big thing for me when I was married to my first wife, whose family was very practicing. I don't know how much, I guess yes, there was some regularity to engaging in church and gatherings
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. But my wife and I did that a lot, like in the spaces we were in, and there was a weird pull, like that was actually kind of, it tore at me
Mm-hmm.
because there was a pull of prosperity
Mm-hmm.
gospel, which is if you're not just dishing it like, hey, what do you want? I love you. Here it is, right? Like, whatever. Like, then you're not right with God. But then there was also the like idea of some kind of reformist understanding, like, you know, the keep the Christ in Christmas. It's not about all this stuff. It's
Yeah.
about just celebrating the birth of our Savior, which, you know, felt so like there was an austerity around it. It was just like, we will be here and focus on Jesus and not think about everything. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
everything else is kind of awesome too. Like the lights and decorations and all that stuff is like
Yeah. Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Like I like that. I mean, I'm not just focused on like how much I've put on layaway. You know, like I'm just like there's other things I like the season, but you had to
Yeah.
reject all of it, right? So it was all these like competing traditions and like
Yeah.
understandings, and you know, that's the thing. It's that idea of commodifying guilt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like our guilt was commodified, and you know, this concept of controlling ourselves, like, you know, I put that in there because you had once said that on a different I actually, we were meeting about something, I don't know what it was, but you made a comment on a macro social level that basically, like, society has set it up so that it doesn't have to control the marginalized, they'll control themselves. And
Yes.
that's usually by placing themselves in socioeconomic distress, because there are certain dependencies that start getting into play. One of the biggest dependencies that were was placed against marginalized, low SES, uh, black and white people, because this is about poverty more than, you know, race even, but it
Mhm.
was heavily done with black people, especially in the 80s and 90s, with which people think is some kind of an urban myth, but like one way or the other, the idea of like the way that crack cocaine found its way onto urban streets and urban
Yeah.
neighborhoods specifically, right? But now, years later, there is fentanyl, right? Fentanyl or
Fentanyl.
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 Is it fentanyl?
I
I think
don't
it's
know actually.
fentanyl. So it's the
We're gonna go with
opioid
that.
fentanyl that I think we're
Yes.
thinking of something, you know, else when we say the other, but I think the opioid fentanyl and opioids in general became a process of enslaving people to make money off of them.
Yeah.
Their dependency was money that was in the pockets of the pharmaceutical companies, but also in
Yeah.
the pockets of people who were prospering off of individuals who were poor, black, drug users, and then became incarcerated. People made money off of them, right?
Yeah.
So capitalism has driven all these things,
Yeah.
and that is it's not but it is genius because it's not a militarized imposed control. It's
Yeah.
like addiction, it's like
But
dependency.
isn't it crazy too how it's like things like crack, uh opioids, meth, Molly, which is like, but that's its own thing. Like those, there are times I feel like when those things are more accessible than cannabis, certainly than
Food.
psilocybin. Yeah.
You can find Molly better than you can find like organic kale,
Yes. Yes. You know, yeah.
or
So,
have
and alcohol
access
is
to
like
it. Yeah.
enough. But like I'm just saying, like those things really fuck your mental health up. Like,
Yeah.
and the things that help are like No,
Yeah.
that's like really cracked down on. I just
Yeah.
thought that was an interesting thing when you started talking about
Why
that.
is tobacco, why is alcohol such a huge control, right? When you marry addictive things and capitalism, it is a devil's bargain right there, right? Because then it's just a self-feeding machine.
Yeah.
There's nobody has to worry in tobacco. Tobacco is what they probably say recession proof, because people will always, I mean, there's so many things that you're not permitted in corrections facilities, but cigarettes are there. Like,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah.
like that's ridiculous. But it's because they know the addiction transcends everything. It transcends religious experience.
Mm.
So this is a waking sleep we've been lulled into. It is a it's not I don't think it's a new or different kind of enslavement. I think there was actual slavery, which was the dehumanization and commodifying in exchange for profit of human beings. But we're kind of in that place in other contexts, right?
Yeah.
There are people who are owned by the tobacco industry, they're owned by the music industry, they're owned by the pharmaceutical industry, they're owned by the prison industrial complex.
Mm.
They're owned by those things, and all of those things are driven by capitalism, by profit. And if that is the case, then we are slaves to consumption.
Yeah. And that's ultimately what my decision and what I like discussed with my family about, changing things this season and focusing on more like really valuing, what we have, what like each other for one, just where we are in life, like where we've come to, appreciating the journey of this year. And what it was about was like taking my mind back, like undoing some of the conditioning, a lot of the conditioning that I have that says the only way to show my kids love around this time of year is to spend money on them. But I felt like it was showing them love to help to free them even before they realized they're slaves to this like consumerism. So that's what it was about, is just taking, my mind back, freeing myself, giving myself that much more freedom to like create, like remember that I'm a creator, that I can say. And it wasn't just me. Like, it wasn't like I'm just like this person like floating out here existing. Like, yeah, I do it. I know I have this headdress on, but like I don't just exist in like a continuous like I gotta like like I have to go, not I mean I have to go outside to be among people. So
Yeah, no, but that's not.
collectively though, like that's what was important though, because
I
wasn't just
don't think
me. Like,
everybody who wears like ritual clothing, that's why it's called a ritual, and you dress for that. We are dressed for the ritual of doing this stream for the
yeah,
solstice.
yeah,
We're going to dress for the ritual when we do the Yule circle ceremony.
yeah,
um but people don't dress like that all the time. They
yeah,
then wore other shit and like
yeah,
went to the
yeah,
farm, or whatever. Like,
yeah.
the people weren't like working in the fields wearing like antlers. Like they didn't do that. They
Right.
wore that shit. That's when it was. We don't have to. That's the thing. We don't have to apologize for it or explain it.
Yeah.
We are talking about reclaiming our personal culture from mother culture that has eaten us up, because mother culture mother culture is always mother culture,
Yeah.
but she has become a bitch. Like she's just like she, I mean it's I mean, because she's angry, because the earth is angry. We've been shitting on it and pissing on
Literally.
it and just like crapping everything up, and like, she is just writhing in just discomfort and illness, and so she's angry and just harsh, and so the culture, which is the personality of this planet that we live on, that we've given it, like we've granted our cultural understanding to what we perceive as our mom, like the earth, which traditionally has been like Demeter or Gaia. Gaia is the, like, Titan, that's like the earth, and like, what was it Kronos? That was, no, it was Kronos's dad, I think. Yeah, Gaia and something. Gaia, what is the
Urinos?
name? Huh?
What are you talking about?
No, let me just look. So, uh, Gaia and,
Urinos.
yeah, you're right. That's exactly what Uranus. So, um, primordial deity, yeah. So, like, they gave birth to the Titans, right? So as much as we have God, I mean, God's probably pissed too. I think everyone's pissed. Like,
Yeah.
we're just,
I mean, we're
we're brats. Like, we suck. We're asshole kids that are just like trashing the house all the time, and you're just
well,
like, yeah,
if you think about it too, like what like that's the thing that I thought about too. Like what else am I teaching, what are we teaching our kids? Like if it's really, and we don't have to actively say like, okay, Christmas is all about presents. But what do they see? Like, what are we doing? What do they see us breaking our backs trying to, or do they whatever, like
yeah,
however, like
yeah.
if it's just like the point is to like get a whole lot of stuff. And that's what people like, that's what I got. Well, I didn't get excited for like a whole lot of stuff, but still to like get something. I'm gonna get a thing.
Yeah,
There's
it's
gonna be something
expectation.
special.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's,
hunger is what
yeah.
that's called.
Yeah. And that
We are
stays,
taught to be
that doesn't go
hungry.
anywhere.
We're not taught to be content. We're
Not
taught
even
to be
hungry,
hungry.
starving.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's not that good, and I think it's incumbent on us in multiple ways to reclaim ourselves, reclaim
Yeah.
our people, reclaim humanity, right? Like, we reclaim it by combating institutional oppression,
Mm.
but those institutions aren't always prison systems and healthcare systems and education systems and social service systems. Some of those institutions are like, you know, things such as Christmas, which is a philosophical, religio-cultural, marketing, and familial traditional concept. It's weird. It's all those things,
Yeah.
Christmas, right? And it's even a foundational or encapsulating concept for like self-esteem.
Mm.
It's weird.
Mm.
I'm not good because I'm not with people. I don't have a family during Christmas, and I don't have this person. I don't have my partner, and I'm not doing this, or I'm alone on Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, people
And you
will
could be alone.
fucking,
You could be
yeah,
alone on a random Tuesday and maybe be fine with that. You could be a person that's
but
not
alone on
like,
Christmas is it, because
a
it's like
different
the
feeling.
entire world, it seems, in at least in American culture, just shuts down, and you're like, hey, I what? Like, is anyone around? Everything's just dead.
Yeah.
And if you're just out, so sometimes I love that. I just like going on Christmas and going like for like a walk or a drive, and just
Yeah.
like nothing's happening. And I'm just like, oh, I do fine during an apocalypse. Like, I mean, I'm like, this is so good. I love
You'd be
this.
that one. You'd be
I'd be
that
that
guy
one
from
guy,
from
you know.
Key and Peele.
Yeah, like there's the guy who's miserable and looking, and this guy like, tonight we're gonna party like it's it would be it'd be crazy. It would be so nice. But we have to reclaim these times in our social like calendar. I mean,
Yeah,
it's I mean that's the only way to describe it. It's like the our social timeline.
yeah,
Like we have to live year to year because that's how shit's defined,
yeah,
right? So we have to begin a year and we have to end a year. They've made us do that. But then there's also a natural feeling of things. You go out in the autumn and go into the winter and you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna go and just die. Like it's like it's telling you that, like, or
yeah,
sleep or just
yeah,
stay somewhere and just chill. Like
yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
is
It's
nothing
like,
to be done out there. It's all dead, you know?
and I think that's the thing that all the spending and like, and not just presents, it's like decorations, it's everything. It's everything that you have to do to like be a good celebrator of the season.
Yeah.
But like, and it's not, I will say that it can, no matter what, like we definitely have our beliefs, but like no matter what you want to like make it about, the point is to like, I felt like I was just conditioned to do this thing, like I was socialized to do this thing, so I need to keep this going. And the point, the thing that I did was to just stop that, because I was like, wait, what are my reasons behind this? Is it me? Is this coming from me, or is this just something I'm doing like a robot because I feel like, well, this is the way I don't get judged. I won't be judged if I just look normal.
Yeah. Well, but there is that and that's called peer pressure, right? So
Yeah,
Christmas is also peer pressure.
yeah,
It very much imposes itself upon you. And it's not just about buying stuff, it's about being desperate to be with other people even if you're not that person. Like
mm-hmm.
there's a few things like I feel that way with. Like at one point when I was like actively going to Christian church, which is really unfortunately the thing that I've had the opportunity to most actively do.
Yeah,
I have never been to Hindu temples as actively because Hindus don't do that all the time. Or at least
yeah,
they practice their own ablutions, like personal things. Then there are like in Hindu culture and like Islam, in Buddhism, they're kind of like high holy days, just like representative of all these antlery things we're wearing in paganism. There are
mm-hmm.
high holy days,
Yeah,
such as Yule
yeah,
and Samhain, which was our last big stream around this kind of idea. And it is during those times that we focus and prepare and ritualize and wear the stuff that we're wearing and really engage because that's like intentional ritual,
yeah,
right? And we do that, but those things aren't the way that we've been coded to practice. Like our practice is what capitalism has given us as the things to celebrate. So in
yeah.
America, if we start with the year, it's New Year's. We get piss ass drunk and make poor decisions
Right before we
right
change
before the
our
new
lives.
year. Yeah, right before we change our lives for the better. Then we move through that for a little bit, and then we're immediately imposed the following month, immediately imposed on celebrating possessive love and the need to be claimed and identified with and by someone else. So if you're just an individual, if you're on your own and you walk through life in that particular way and you are self-contained and not necessitating the validation, which doesn't have to be unhealthy, just even healthy validation. Like I personally find I've been through lots of relationships, and I find at this point in my life that I do not like the constant presence of anyone. Right. And that includes my son, and he does not like the constant presence of me. So he exists, like I and his mother, though we divorced, we have a very healthy co-parenting relationship that's very focused intentionally on him, which really got us through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we found that at a distance we actually kind of like each other.
Yeah.
But like
close up, it was too much.
Occasionally, and then, or on some regularity because of him. And the same thing, he goes and stays there and stays here, and he likes that.
Yeah.
He's like, great, this is all awesome, right? So, but Valentine's Day will make you feel like a sad little bitch. And that is terrible.
Oh my God.
That's so bad. But then we get into Easter, and you have to like somehow buy lots of new shit and dress expensively and go to church and do all those things and be very, again, just generalize kind of how the Western concept of that is done. And it is very much about showing out in order to celebrate the resurrection of a Messiah. Like I don't understand even the correlation. It's just like that's how it's done. And I'm saying, I specifically said the dressing up and showing up because lots of money is spent in Christian spaces.
Yeah, you got to wear your Sunday best. Like, not even
that's where that saying comes from.
Your regular Sunday best, though.
Yeah,
you got to wear Easter colors, or like you have to, just put on your church clothes.
Yeah, and Easter colors is shit that you're never gonna wear again because it's a horrible color. It's like pastels.
Oh my
gosh. Come on, dude. I'm sure you do, but like I know that you're way more into earth colors.
Yes, I really am.
Like very like natural like colors, like just basic chill. If you stand out as a creature wearing pastels, you get eaten in nature. That's why you have to be able to blend into the shit around
yellow
you.
Chicks are in danger.
Yeah, I know. So, and
I meant the animal, just so we're clear.
Yeah. 4th of July, if you're not doing exactly what the worst common denominator of Americans does, then you're not somehow patriotic or celebratory of the country. And frankly, folks, this country is in a place where we don't find a lot to celebrate. We find a lot to be embarrassed about. And when we say that, there are people who start screaming about American exceptionalism. And American exceptionalism is the kind of attitude that goes into like doing Christmas exactly how we do Christmas, right? And it's not about that. This idea, right? Celebrating the light beginning to overtake the darkness.
Yeah.
That's not just meant to be like, like ominous and poetic. It's literally what's happening. We're celebrating at this time, which is what you get into when you get into ideas around Yule, but you don't have to even think about Yule. You can just be a person who goes outside every day and you're like, hey, it's sunnier a little bit longer now, right? Awesome. Like it's the oh, we're starting to head into that. We're starting to get into that time. And then when everything is dead and in the spring, it starts to, you're like, Ostara. Like, it's like Easter, like it's starting new, the risen, like something is rising, at that point,
Yeah.
all that kind of shit,
Yeah.
Samhain, the beginning of the declination, like it's just, ritualizing the darkness of life because it's
It's a part of
dark.
life. Yeah.
Today is the darkest day of the year, right?
Yeah.
So it's part of life, but still celebrated,
Yeah.
right?
And that's a thing that was it can be, I don't think commercialism, it's like, oh, well, not dark shit doesn't sell, but like the reality doesn't sell, more like, that doesn't sell, that we can't drive people in numbers to want to like flood our stores
Yeah.
and whatever with that. But like our ancestors, meaning like just the people that lived before us, like years and years and years ago, they did that. They, probably didn't have as many freaking distractions really.
Yeah.
And like the whole like donning of like a headdress or wearing ritual clothing and doing rituals was to add to your own strength and like, give you fuel in just as your person, just like you need food, to eat, to fuel your body. It was that spiritual fuel to help them continue to live their everyday lives, do this like embrace the suck, as they say,
Yeah.
as well as the beauty. But like that was the beauty, was to be able to celebrate the darkness and also celebrate the in that act of like, of like celebrating the darkness, the dark parts, aspects of life, of ourselves, even that we feel around this time, even leading up to this time, if you're like in tune to it, but that's why we're doing this too, like, because it's not just like, well, if you're in tune to it, like, let's all get on the same page and kind of talk about the elephant in the room that's never really discussed.
You're right. You're right. That is very key to the idea of how we are distracted from believing in the very things that are indicative of how connected we would be with the earth on which we trod, right? Like
Right.
it's this idea about you know ritual that happens with community, around community, like you come together. That's why you call things like, we're going to do the Yule circle ceremony. you know it is a circle for a reason. A circle isn't necessarily able to be comprised with like one individual. There is, even if two individuals reach out their arms and touch their arms like this, they have then formed a circle. But more and more people just widen the circle at that point. Yeah, technically you can create the circle with your own arms, but you could also jerk off by yourself. But like, sex is also good, right? So like,
Right. Connectedness.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
So there are these things, but the problem is when we connect more, even with others, on a more esoteric level, and a level that is more about the presence of purpose, of setting intention, of actively living in the world. Like, many of us actively live in the world. People who had to grow their own food, build their own communities, heal their own sick, teach their own young. Like, in a community, you lived actively and you hoped actively, especially when it came to the food, that everything would be okay. And so you created lots of ceremony and ritual around these things to kind of stay in it. right? And to stay focused and to stay intentional. But when you do that, you do not require as much because you live in a simpler way within a simpler context, which is what you're doing with your family, which is what I'm doing with my family. And by all means, folks, you can see, I mean, Nadine's not showing you with her background, but my backdrop, you can see this is not a minimalist space, right? Or maybe some people would consider it minimalist, but I got a lot of books and I got stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I have stuff that makes me happy, right? But there's also, a way to have that stuff and just kind of chill, right? Like, and not like be super um like obsessed and existing on different levels, and to a certain extent doing what causes you to fall into the capitalist trap, which is arranging your life based on what you want to consume rather than arranging your life based on another construct like how the earth naturally moves through time, right? There is a dawning and a dying, and our lives go and we do, and relationships go and we do all the things, just it's all circles, beautiful circles of things that come and come again, right? Like, I mean, it's wonderful,
Yeah.
right? And we could embrace that, to be like, I'm at this part of my life, and there's a kind of a greater thing than oneself in that. And when you come together, especially in pagan narratives and just in simple spaces, and live simply and exist simply and grow simply and die simply, capitalism freaks out. It's like, oh fuck no. We are just gonna sit. And that's what they used to
Yeah.
call like hippies. They called them, and not just hippies, but sannyasis, like the Naga Babas that wander through the Kumbh, right? Like, and wandering mystics. They called them navel gazers, which was the idea. The navel isn't necessarily this thing.
Yeah.
Navel gazer is really third eye, right? So you
Yeah.
just sit and you are not renewing your Amazon Prime membership, right? Like it's that's the problem. Nadine, that's the problem.
That is the problem. That is
Yeah.
the problem.
But all the shit we're talking about is perceived as very like, regressive and not that cool.
But let me just lay this out here real quick. So this is why the number one reason why I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this like drastic thing. This like shocking. No present. You love your kid. But I was talking to my 9-year-old the other day, and I was noticing that she was not feeling satisfied, really. And I could just I was looking in her eyes and just I just kind of a thought just kind of popped up. I didn't know exactly what, was going on with her, but I had been noticing it that day. And this time, I talked to her, because the thing is, she was it was little things that she was doing, and how she was acting with her siblings, where it was like, that's out of character. And that's kind of, maybe everyone wouldn't feel that way, but when you know your kid, you're like, oh, that's kind of devious for you. Actually, you're you're really going in, even in an underhanded way. So I'm like, well, I'm not hollering or yelling, or, well, that's the same thing. Or even without that, I'm not judging her. I'm just like, hey, let's bring this to the forefront and talk about it. And she started tearing up when I said, I just very, very simply said, I understand what it feels like. Sometimes I just feel like nothing can satisfy me. Nothing can feel that ache that I have in my chest for something, almost like when you're hungry for something, but you don't exactly know what. And like nothing's getting through. And as I'm describing this feeling, she's like, tears just like streaming down her face. And like, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what it is. But like, my 9-year-old kid is like feeling, apathy. She's feeling like numb. And
Mm,
why it's important. That's why it was important for me to change, while they're still young. Like, before it's all consuming. Like, it's hard to do this shit as an adult. I'd rather,
yeah,
try to give them a shot now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the
Just
shot
to,
is and the shot is to be satisfied with like simple things. That's what I ended our conversation, my 9-year-old and myself, like our conversation was like, pay attention different times when you're happy,
yeah,
when you have joyous moments, but we don't always pay attention to those because it's just like, well, that was just that thing or that was just that. But I was like, I've been paying attention. I've been like noticing like, oh, this little simple thing brings me so much pleasure. you know I was like, you just have to keep paying attention to those things, and then you'll start to like recognize that right away,
yeah,
as so that's where
yeah.
we're coming to.
It and it's especially important that these are the narratives that we share more broadly on stream. Others share them. We're not the only ones, obviously.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, but it's important that we do it in virtual communities, such as the wild west that is YouTube. And just there are wonderful journeys one can take on YouTube, and I do it frequently. That's why, you know and we both do that. We
Yeah.
like this platform, and that's why we want to create content for this platform. But the idea of creating content, you know for us, is centered on purpose, but also an acknowledgement of need. And shit's not awesome, like things aren't awesome, folks. Like they're just not. And the people who are gonna say, well, if you say shit like that, you're not patriotic, or you're just, you're woke, or you're having, some self delusion of some kind or the other. We're not saying that things aren't awesome because our lives aren't awesome. Like, my life is actually really kind of great. Like, I'm happy,
Yeah.
and I feel like I have really authentic relationships with the people that are in my life, which doesn't mean they're all like awesome and chirpy all the time,
Right.
right? And this doesn't mean that everything looks rosy. To a great extent, the idea is that I'm embracing the darkness of life, but also celebrating it. So life feels really good. So it's not a question of like a personal dissatisfaction, that that I have, that says why I say things aren't awesome. Things aren't awesome because things are demonstrably not working for people on a broad scale.
Yeah.
Healthcare, incarceration, food insecurity, housing insecurity, mental health, lack of education access, and the concept of work, like the concept of employment. Basically, let's focus it down. The concept of employment as the necessitating factor to all the other things: health, education, food, housing, like clothing. Like, that's an illness. That's not okay, because that's never going to make it. There are not enough jobs and not enough salaries to make things okay for everyone in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was talking to someone the other day, like I know there's things that like I'm just thinking as you were talking about employment and like that's such an important topic for a lot of people, like like employment, like that's the way we like make help people to make their lives better.
Mhm.
you know
Yeah, it's the answer. It's the
right.
step up from anything, from addiction, from poverty, from incarceration. The fix is we'll train you for a job. That's
Yeah.
the fix.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole idea of creating your own life is like it seems so far removed. Even to do it is like you are in a way like, whoa, you're doing something different. Like,
Mm.
just when you were talking about employment as like the way to like the only way to get the things that you need,
Yeah.
what I mean, like and
And
sustain them. And somebody, like I was talking to someone who was like, in a situation and like, like, okay, I have a little bit of money. I think I'm just gonna get, rather than spending it all up on like rent for only so long, like I think I'm just gonna get, I was wanting to just buy like a camper and buy like a plot of land, but like you can't be in this county and like live in that for more than 4 months. You have to be, even if you own your own land, like you have to be, you can't take time to like save and like, slowly build. Like you have to have that money already or they will repossess what you got. And like this person is like almost in tears, like, I just want to be a homeowner. Like I just want to be, living in the way that I want to live. Like right now I'm with roommates and I have no control over how anything it goes, but I work and I work and I work, and I come home and it's like tight and miserable because I'm like, I'm not living in the way that I would like to live. I'm living in these like close parameters. But when I'm trying to like get, and this is coming from the other person, but like when I'm trying to, make my plans, I keep hitting these barriers, and it just kind of like really illuminated for me, realizing how much sucks you back into
Mhm.
like, this is how things are done,
Yep. Yep.
you know?
Yeah, and that's the, that's why we're saying, folks, we're not, you take Nadine's example of this friend, like we can't, what we're saying is we cannot attack that problem by somehow getting her better educated so she can have a better job with more money so she can achieve what she's achieving. Why? Because those things are constantly being tried. There's constantly funding for special programs, special nonprofits to help, programs that help. We had a client whose mother once was very fond of saying, "Oh, but is there a program?
Yeah.
What's the program about? Oh, okay, tell me a little bit more about your program." And we kept saying, "It's not a program. It is what your we're trying to help your son create a context for himself in which he will be healthy as a formerly incarcerated person trying to live in society."
Mm.
Why is he incarcerated again? Because of why people are always incarcerated again, is because there is not a framework that is sustainable that will help them not prosper, just survive, just live. Roof, clothing, food, and a desire to contribute to your community,
Yeah.
which doesn't
And
have to be a job,
right.
right? And so the idea is there are many people who can do that, but because it has to be a job, there are not enough programs, not enough funding. There is not enough to educate and prepare and employ. Remember that. You can educate people, but there's not the jobs necessarily. You cannot do that for everyone who is marginalized, actively marginalized, not just by happenstance, but the actively oppressed and marginalized, you cannot look at those people, as Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan like to call them in the 80s, welfare queens.
And
That's how they demonized Black women, by calling them welfare queens.
yeah.
And there is not enough programs or funding to elevate every one of these people into the next bracket, which is just the next bracket, is just the bracket. It's the bracket you exist in, I exist in, in different stages.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still suffering at the hands of a system, a structure, a social structure, a philosophy, a way of being, capitalism,
Yeah.
which is there. And the ultimate sickness of it is capitalism can only work when there are people who have and there are people who have not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was really thinking while you were saying, like, we can't, there's not time for that. Like the person I was talking about in that example, there's not time for, like, well, we're going to get you properly educated and you could get a better job. And
Yeah.
it's not even just that. What if that person's idea of a better job is something extremely simple, like something that doesn't stress them to the max? Right. Because of certain things. And what if their goal really is just to know that they have their own little corner? Like, I have this, and
simple,
a way to maintain it. Like, that's it. But that whole like welfare queen, and even if there's so many people that could easily, just from people's judgment, fall under that category. And I feel like sometimes simplistic living is looked at with that same, judgment of like, oh, you're not like in it to like get, who doesn't want money? Like, okay, but but not like, everyone does not have that goal of like just making a whole lot. Some people are, thank goodness, like just wanting simple, like have simple goals.
But that's, again, the oppression of capitalism that is essentially saying, if you want to improve your circumstances, you have to work harder. Now, people who are like defenders of that kind of statement, right, will just say, oh, well, you know what? You can't just sit on the sofa watching Jerry Springer or whatever you're watching and expect your life to improve. Of course.
That's true.
Of course that is true, you idiot. Right? Like, that's not the point that we're trying to make. It's not about people who are apathetic and not doing and overweight and just sitting there and not contributing or activating their own intention. They're just not doing anything, but they want more. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the idea that you have to work harder to get more than you have. And for a lot of people, more than you have is just having the basic necessities rather than doing without. That's the majority of people. And then there's a little bit of people who are like, I want a motorcycle, and it's like, okay, like, me too, what I mean? Like, but I just think I don't want to spend money on that, or try to acquire the money to spend on that. So the idea is, and it's not about the wanting more. That's its own separate issue about, like you said, with your daughter, dissatisfaction and discontentment, right? Like that hole that you can never fill. That's what a motorcycle is, right? Sorry to all those riders, but no, actually, because motorcycle people, that you see them riding together in like groups of 50, that looks fun. That looks like wherever they're going is just a party because there's 50 people and you put some music on that. So I'm like, okay,
Instant.
I just can't afford to be part of that culture.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can't do that. Now that's the problem, right?
It's so funny that you said
Yeah.
that, because I was literally just thinking before, I'm like, it would be nice to have access to different things like that, but I don't necessarily want to own that
So
experience.
yeah, exactly. Like rent a motorcycle club. But no, you can also do the same thing around like barbecues and like other things like that. Like, but the idea is those aren't the issues, folks. The issue is that concept of you have to work harder. That's not just about pull yourself up by your bootstraps and put in some extra hours and this and that. That like wasn't even what it used to mean like 20, 30 years ago. Work harder and like do better at work just means like you're doing better at your job. That wasn't necessarily measured in exact numbers. Like it was measured qualitatively. Like you've been doing great, Sanders. Like it's like this quarter, like that kind. You deserve a promotion or a raise or whatever. Now those things are not even the issue. Like you are on, like you are measured by a number, like a performance outcome that is a number that's probably there to the third decimal point. It's very like exact, and it's all about like production. And sometimes it's the production of even just ethereal things like the production of consumer intent. Like that is somehow measured because you're advertising as much, and some other algorithm somewhere measures that this is what people intend to do this Christmas. Good job, you did well. Like, what is that? You've commodified intent? How does that work? It's not that kind of thing, right?
Are we living in like the Minority Report age?
Exactly, man. Exactly, right. So I think the concept there that I'm getting at is just is like that idea of working harder, that idea of you're worth more as a human being the more you produce.
And also, the more you produce, the more you're entitled to, and the more you're entitled to take. So it's like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a good point, because that is exactly this point, how a few people control a lot of people. Because the people who control the means of production are the people who drive the capitalist fervor. Those same people want you to want. So they get you to want, and then they create what you want and sell it to you. And that's a great system. That works.
The way that was just laid out, like, God damn. But that's what I really noticed about this time, and I really wanted to claim it back, is because I'm like, I didn't even want none of this. My kids didn't want nothing. They were happy.
It's just, it comes from outside. It's
like something flashed across the screen dramatically.
You're like, oh crap. It's like, oh no.
It's like that. That's like horror music.
Yeah, it's like the Jaws. It's like, like, and which is the one that I hate. Oh, this is the one, right? City sidewalks, pretty sidewalks, cause it's holiday time. It's probably not the words, but it's like, ba 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 ba, cause it's Christmas. Like it's so gross, man. It makes me feel so gross. And I just think that's what we're trying to get to, is this idea of, you know, it's very isolating, right? Because you're and that's all. That's It's not a simple thing to say, folks, like consumerism as isolation, but work with us here, right? Work with us. We'll get to that understanding, so that that makes a little bit more sense. If it doesn't make sense for you, if it does make sense to you, then kudos, because
And get in them comments.
yeah, get in those comments, and talk about how you arrived at that understanding, because the idea of how capitalism isolates you by making you a consumer, um it's not just about what is now prevalent everywhere. It's ubiquitous, right? Which is the ability to buy shit online. You click a few buttons and you're just boom. You have your phone, you pull it out, or you just speak. Like, what if I could just speak? What if you were this like artificial intelligence avatar? Nadine? Yes, Siraj. What is it that I can help you with? Nadine, I want Rocky Road ice cream. No, scratch that. Make it Ben and Jerry's fish food. I want a new winter vest. And I also want a really special Viking knife, and like a Nordic knife, but I want a specific kind of carving in there, and I want it to be like 1065 carbon steel. Go.
Nadine, first off,
Not even be like,
let me just tell
what are
you.
you talking?
Yeah, it's gonna have an attitude like, I already stopped listening. Can I
Yeah.
materialize the first thing before you just shoot out your whole freaking list? I still have a consciousness.
Oh my god, that has to be a skit. I already stopped listening. imagine if Siri and Alexa said that. They'd
I'm
be
sorry,
like, no,
I
they
didn't
can't.
understand you.
Oh my god. If Key and Peele didn't do that skit, they should have, because like back in those days, folks, you used to be able to think, or like back in old Dave Chappelle, not new horrible culturally like cruel Dave Chappelle, but old Dave Chappelle, it would be called If Siri Was Black, right? Like they would say that, like, and that wouldn't be totally racist to say, but the reality is it is racist. I'm being racist and saying, oh, it's like a if blank was black. That's horribly racist, like, because it's also if blank was Indian, like, you know, Are yaar, why are you giving me all of these things? I don't want to do this. I already told you I'm sitting, I'm having my tea. I don't want to bloody well listen to what it is that you want again. Go, please, go tell God what it is you want. Go tell God what you want. And that, folks, is racism.
God, I'm so sorry because it's horrible. I'm sitting here cracking up the whole
I know,
time.
it's terrible. Racism's also funny. Racism can be really funny.
Sometimes, listen, and I cringe sometimes because it's like I watch, different people, and sometimes I'm just like, I like you. Like, I feel like I would like you as a person. I don't know you as a person, but I grew up with you. But like, some of these things are making me cringe. And I ultimately had to kind of like, I don't know, like there's a level of, that's kind of think like the outline of everything we're talking about, but like there's a level of taking the bad but still enjoying and like experiencing the good, and like sometimes you just really have to fucking laugh about the ugliness of life, like, and admit where it's like, yeah, there is a common thread there. Like, yeah, I also have experienced that and it's bullshit and I'm laughing through my pain right now. And then also sometimes it's just incredibly freaking racist.
Yeah, but it is what we're talking about here, this idea of like seeing the humanity in the characters that we cast as villains, right? It's hard to do that. But I think we're not talking about the insane villains. Like we've had like from the DC universe, Arkham Asylum has emptied, and the people that escaped Arkham were Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Ron DeSantis, right? And they're like the Joker, Penguin, and Scarecrow, right? And we're like, we need Batman to deal with this. We can't deal with this on our own. I'm talking about
That should be a
regular,
skit.
yeah, I'm talking about regular villains like your
Yeah.
asshole boss or the really shitty social service person at DCF or at WIC or wherever, right?
Right.
Like those people, if you can see the humanity in those villains, because you're casting them as a villain, they're bad, and they're against you in that moment. If you can see the humanity in them, you start to see that it's not just like, well, she's having a hard day. No, fuck that bitch. Like if she works here, she needs to help me because that's the job that she, but no, because she has somehow people who enter folks. If you haven't been to a social service agency other than like the DMV, but you get a picture of that at the DMV or the post office as well. But if you want a real prime vintage, you have to go to the Department of Children and Families or Child Services of some kind, or any place where poor folk go to get money that they are entitled to. But these people have to make sure that it's hard to do it and hard to get it, right? Yeah. So
because you have to work hard.
You have to work hard, right? And seeing the humanity in them is seeing this idea that we're getting at when we talk about how we're conditioned to exist in a certain way. And we're just talking about Christmas right now. But we also can think about it from the perspective of these folks being conditioned wholly by the structure that we live in, right? So wherever they are in life, the common thread is that we live in an economic reality that means or that yields the few controlling the many, or power and privilege being isolated with the few as opposed to the many, which leaves the many in a constant state of what your 9-year-old child experienced. And that state drives them. And they do different things, and they're probably working at a job. That's all that social service job is. That job is not about wanting, maybe at one point it was, and it felt somewhat rewarding to help people. But when you're beaten down by a system that doesn't actually want to help people, but operates on precisely the non-help to continue the problem rather than resolving the problem in community, right? Like, you may not be able to defeat poverty on a global scale within 1,000 years, but you can defeat poverty in a community within 10 years. You can do that. You can apply yourself to that particular type of experiment within a particular municipality. Like Gainesville could give that a shot, right? But we work in continued like layers of a particular type of social conditioning, from the macro to the personal. And the personal is that woman at the counter at DCF who is very unyielding, malicious, maybe intentionally diverting or kind of pushing you back because though she started in that position wanting to help women, let's say, that are experiencing what she herself experienced when she was younger, right? She's
Yeah.
now become totally discompassionate towards those same women. And I'm talking about a particular woman who actually said of a younger woman with children who's a single mother, said, y'all better stop having babies, right? Yes, that would be ultimately a social evolution if people, not just Black women, but people in general, said, we need to chill on the population growth.
Yeah.
We are getting to an unsustainable place for this planet without the technological raping of the planet. That's what I'm saying, folks. Apparently we can go to a 2 billion more before we're putting strains or something. Some people say that, other people don't. You have everything from we are in a catastrophic collapse on a planetary level, but also a social level, which is fairly apparent. Or there are some people who may be driven by capitalist structures who are saying we can do this and do that in order to sustain life. I mean, there's people who are like memeing and doing stuff about how insect protein is our next new evolution. Like we're gonna start eating insect protein because that's where we can get it, because we can't keep producing vegetable and animal protein.
Well, first off, I feel like the eating insects has been done before. It's not
It has been
necessarily a
done
new thing.
before. Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, so
But
okay,
eating,
because we're gonna like not be able to grow anything, and so we're gonna have to eat bugs. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty, that's kind of the larger idea of what that narrative is. And we're definitely dramatizing it. And by all means, please, fact check. And I don't even say fact check, research it for yourself.
Yeah.
And come to that place. We usually look stuff up, but that's not really the point that we're trying to get at in terms of our declining, or not, I mean, declining food supply, but increasing food shortages. And God help us when we get to the water wars. That's like Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, and that's
the entire planet will be a desert. Folks, they do say that Mars used to look like the Earth like 3 billion years ago.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And now it's a desert planet. Hint, hint, folks.
Want to maybe do something about that?
Yeah, right. So anyway.
Yeah, but still, what the lady was saying was not like, let's address this. It was just like a judgment of like, well, and the way it was done is like a person was reaching out like, hey, how do I solve this issue? Like, can I get some support around this? And it was like, well, one thing you could do is like unhave those kids you already have.
Yeah. Unhave. Would you want to murder them? Is that it's, my God, what are you saying?
Yeah.
So you're just saying, or do you feel like I'm gonna have more? So you're like
that was, it was like a total let's not discuss that, but let me take this opportunity to judge you, and that's not where we're at.
Yeah.
That's not gonna really solve anything.
So as we said, we were going to get deeper into this idea of consumerism as isolation.
Yeah.
That is what is happening when we are hyper stimulated with just endless possibilities, not just for things, but ideas, things to stream, things to watch. Um, please subscribe and click the notification bell on this channel, though, because we do want you to watch what we're doing and support us. So we are completely hypocritical.
No, it's that we're not like remove yourselves from life. No. This is it. We're not like remove yourself from life and just float in a place of non-existence. No, we know that we are existing in this reality. Like we're a part of life also. But and even like the example of like shifting from one place to the other, it's not like this whole removed experience. I still live in life. I still have to go to Walmart today and like dodge people and like, get my item and run.
And just again, like Kim said, got to keep the wretched close by, right? Like so the idea is, you're not removing yourself to some magical forest because it's probably state or federal protected property, and you can't go out there. You're going to be arrested or jailed, or shot, I should say. So you basically, or you know what, folks, just try being homeless, being houseless. And people like to say that generally it's white people of privilege that say you should really say houseless and not homeless, because houseless preserves their dignity because they have a home. No, they like often people don't have a home. They're very much adrift from city to city, from place to place. So it is also feeling like you don't have a home or a community, right? And those things, they come into being because that hyperstimulation of capitalism, of consumerism, is so blinding. It's like we're an image looking into the stars, and they're reflected in our eyes as deep pools of desire. Like, it's awful, man. And we are so mesmerized, right? We're so like, it's like it's become the god, consumpos, like he's just like we're worshiping at the altar of this deity that
the almighty
provides us contentment and completion and fulfillment, but only for a little while. And you got to go back for more and more and more. And I know there's a word for that too, right?
Addiction?
Yeah, or I was going to say pusher, right? Or the dealer. Don't trust the dealer, man. So it's really a trajectory living in this life, in this social construct that we live in. It's a trajectory, if you're not actively examining it and dealing with those types of ideas to kind of deconstruct them, to decode, to deprogram from all of this. If you're not in a deprogramming community, if you're not amongst people who are questioning just one question, right? We don't have to get all culty about it. It's just, do things have to be like this? Like, does it have to be like this? Like, is this, are we doing the best here? Like, is this okay? Is this right? Is this the way it's supposed to be? Who said it was the way it's supposed to be? How did we get here? What's the history of it? Let me study and learn about all these things. And then what you have is the Sauron eye of the consuming god looking at you like Frodo with the ring. No. Alert. The unnamed one sees us. Sauron's eye is searching. It's like you're asking
another
questions.
One's waking up.
Right. And the deity of capitalism says, shut the fuck up and just order something. Have you seen this movie? Stream it right now. right now.
Only on.
Yeah. And it's not only on what you can't just get it. You have to pay for this service, but then it's on that one. You have to pay for that service. It's so complexly attuned to get the most fucking money out of all of us that gathering in a chill space with a chill experience is so hard to do, right? But here's what some people are doing, right? Let's now take a little bit of a shift and think more as Nadine was talking with her daughter and her kids in general about Christmas and about doing things a little bit different. But we're not just gonna sit and like tie ourselves to the radiator and just like keep as we're shaking for gifts and presents, like try to keep like addicts, just like I gotta stay here, handcuff me to the bed rail, right?
Yeah.
Like there's other ways, there's other things to do, and this is what we were talking about initially. Yeah, why the solstice is a special time, right? Now, folks, we imbue it with this. Like the solstice is a thing. The length of the day, the angle of the sun, all that stuff is like, look it up. It's a thing.
It's science.
And it exists independent of any human belief. But we apply meaning to it in the way that meaning exists for us. So a lot of people, especially way back when, before like the 1700s, like on backwards, like people didn't know as much, but they still grew shit.
Those smarty pants, for real. No, for real.
And they still existed and they still lived, and humanity is lived either hunter gathering or doing basic agricultural spaces for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But now we're in that like focus on production for the sake of progress rather than production for the sake of supplying demand, right? So that's not what these people at Stonehenge do on the solstice. They do something different, right? So let's take a look at how these individuals gathered. And then I've got a special treat for someone else. These are people celebrating the winter solstice in Latvia. We're going to look at that next. But let's take a look at Stonehenge in England.
Okay.
Winter solstice celebrations, man. Look at this. I mean, that's impressive.
Oh, wow.
That like you can go to a place. I mean, we don't have things like that here because this place isn't old enough for pagan things existing. Like we're only 200 and something years old. We could celebrate what the Native Americans did. We could celebrate Native American rituals to mark time and space like this, and yet we can't because we fucking killed everyone. And we put them into fucking reservations, and they hate everyone else, right? They don't like any of us because us being not them, because they have a right to. They continue to be oppressed. Their rights and lands are encroached upon even unto this day.
Yeah.
Which fucking sucks because one of those like ceremonies, like let's just look at that and think about, let's take a look at a who do I like? Who was the let's look at the Algonquin water song. Algonquins are meaningful to. Oh, should I look at this one up here with these ladies, or should I look at this one right here? Which one should I look at?
We watched them both.
I'm gonna watch hers off stream. Like it's so ridiculous,
Me
man.
too.
Come on, this calls to me. They're colorful and nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
That's crazy.
Let's see what they're doing. Women everywhere sing this Algonquin water song. Anyway, why Algonquins
Granddaughter,
are
the
meaningful
water
to
can
me
hear you. The water has memory.
from the area where I grew up, and the Iroquois. Wow. Oh, wow. Look at those earrings.
Nibi,
Nibi,
Wabo,
Wabo,
Andayan,
Andayan.
And no, you're not allowed to take part in that, even though they're making it seem like women everywhere are taking part in it, because we are part of the people, just because we're not them, who continue to colonize and oppress. And so we don't get any historical, like, imagine if we hadn't killed all the indigenous people in this country, but we had just continued to exist socially with them. And so people who came and this, and we kind of intermarried, and, and we'd have kids who were all, not just every white girl who's like, I'm part Cherokee, like it's like, actually, yeah, tell me, say it. I know you want to.
I can't help but say it is definitely my grandmother was Cherokee. Like,
Well, the Cherokee
that is,
fucked
but
a
that
lot.
is no, bro. Like, it's not even that. It's like history. It's a little bit different from, may say the
It's like
history of someone you were just describing. Mine has to do with like slavery.
Yeah, no, I know, I feel it, but I'm just saying, in because of that particular kind of oppression that did exist in that way, but that doesn't mean that any Cherokee culture is broadly celebrated as a part of our social construct, right?
No.
Like, that would be awesome, because then if we could do this, we would then be able to do this here, because these people are all like, they order on Amazon Prime UK, but they also do this.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really important, because that is what we're talking about here, in terms of, that is a community ritual. That's something that we can create. That's something that we can do together. And it's distinctly not going to a church, synagogue, or mosque in an Abrahamic religion, because Abrahamic religions, which are the big Judeo-Christian plus Islam, but that's how they call it, right? It's from the Abraham. They all descended, supposedly, but that's the religious lineage, which just means it's not Buddhism, and it's not Hinduism, and it's not, anything that doesn't look at a singular God as the just the progenitor of all things. Right? Like,
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the earth, or a river, or a particular tree, or anything like that, that's not on, right? Like, that's, nope, you're blasphemous, you're a heathen, right? But heathens do this kind of stuff. They're called heathens, and this kind of stuff, and this kind of stuff. But let's watch what this little girl does, because she is amazing. I mean, it's what they're doing is cool, but somehow she must be like the Corliss family, but she's amazing.
Today is the winter solstice, and we are going to go and celebrate it in the traditional way. Incuomo Callens. Incuomo Callens.
Look at the leaf on her
Incuomo
thing, on her
Callens.
sleeve.
Yeah.
Look at her. Look at her.
I can't do it right.
I can't do it right, she says.
And I am in Latvia to celebrate winter solstice.
Wasn't she awesome?
Too
Yeah.
loud and busy to vlog during the celebration, so I'll try to explain.
So we're gonna get some ideas for our
what
Yule
went on.
circle
People
ceremony
from
for
the
this.
Baltics were the last pagans of Europe.
See, everyone's dressing
and have
up.
kept many traditions and
They got
beliefs.
all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
going on. They have an
Winter
Easter bunny there
solstice,
too.
They dress up in masks and go to house to house.
Yeah, this looks about right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And dance and sing. Almost everyone here
Yep.
was dressed up and brought a picnic.
Yep.
I was kitten.
That person has a
Table
scythe.
that everyone shares.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, like that's like because I believe the Reaper also exists here. See that? Like him who's raising the
yeah,
scythe over
yeah.
there. It's part of it. The Reaper comes with the death of the year. Oh, I believe that the Reaper is also Father Time.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. But that guy's hat wins. Look at him. He's a tree gnome. You see that?
That's like, yeah, I have a like Santa decoration like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So here's these kids. So you know, look at this. I think one thing that maybe, or we'll just keep it playing. One thing that may be really cool is to, have your children intentionally participate in a portion, like something that's intentional, that's done, or even as a pre-ceremony for the Yule Circle ceremony, right? Like do something to initialize it, because kids just turn into assholes anyway after a while. So like it's just like, like
I
do it
can,
for a little bit, like do your thing, and that marks it. Just like all these little kids, like, see, these people just do this stuff. Look at all these kids. They're having a blast. They're outside. There's a Yule log.
Yeah. Look at her trying to pull too, or
I
trying
know.
to pull too.
I know. So you see what I'm saying? Like this is, I think this is, kind of synchronous intention, because you have set that intention, and it just so happens that there are people in the world that do stuff like this.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how, we can kind of live in a way as Americans that where it seems like the rest of like other realities like don't exist. Like it just feels like this is a closed, narrative sometimes. Like this is how things are done, like until you really experience in one way or another. And thank goodness because everybody can't necessarily travel and go to these places and be like, oh, have that aha moment. Like other people live different ways, exist in different ways. It's not just done the way I know or, what was taught to me. But now that you can find that even, online or, like you can kind of search for it, like right from, from the library or from your home or whatnot, and just see like, oh, I don't just have to live in this way. Like this is just what was taught to me, but like there other people do different things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of takes some of the isolation out of it.
I think what you're talking about is technically considered woke, and that means Ron DeSantis says no.
Oh, does he? Is that what he says?
So you're not allowed to learn about other cultures, because that is not being a simp for American exceptionalism. Even though these fucking people lived here before we did, and we came and said, bitch, we are doing what is going to become an American tradition, which is landlord eviction. We're going to throw your ass out and put you into the projects. Wow. Even if it's a particular section of a state, that is the project part of the state. It's called a reservation.
It's funny how something is called a project, like once you like, okay, you're there now. Now it's a project. Like, wait, what? Wait, what you trying to say?
Let's see. I like this. We haven't watched this yet, but I want to see how some, so I don't know what she's is it Salish, I guess is it's a northwestern tribe, Salish maybe,
Mhm.
unless that's completely wrong. But let's see what
We'll see.
they or Salish, but that might be the tribe. Let's see what their winter solstice, because this is not theoretically, I mean, there's no real connection other than the connection to the earth on which they live. So these are
Yeah.
people who aren't, self-identifying as like environmentalists. That's just their belief system. That's how they
Mm-hmm.
exist, right? So let's see what they've got to say. Oh, they got 15 subscribers. Let's go.
Yeah.
Advocates for urban, rural, and remote off-reserve indigenous peoples, off-reserve throughout BC
Mm.
to amplify their voices. See, they're trying to, like, everybody,
Yeah.
everybody, wherever you might be.
Today is winter solstice, and with it being winter solstice, we come to a point with this pandemic where we had to bring uplifting messages, songs, dance, regalia to our Coast Salish people, but with the ability of having social media, Zoom, Facebook, and other platforms, we've been able to share this across Turtle
I
Island.
love the hats.
Mm-hmm.
We want safety for our people, so we've consciously made an effort to say we are not going into ceremony this year, and this is the first time ever that we've said anything like, even uttered those words. Ceremony has always been a part of our life, but this is our way of saving our people, saving their lives, and allowing us to say we support our safety, we support our well-being, we want our children, our elders, our people to continue to live. So staying home is important, and bringing access to ceremony, song, culture, dance, regalia into the comforts of people's home was important to uplift them, thinking of their mental well-being, their physical well-being, sharing happiness with them. So this was the best way we can do it, with support of the Northwest Indigenous Council and other leaders in the community.
Okay, so I didn't realize that's what it was going to be about. I like the visuals of what we were seeing. As look at the similarities in regalia, costuming. It's imitation of Earth. Like that is what the thing is. The colors, the expressions, everything. It's like we are of the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet what this is actually saying is, people that early, like, colonizing Americans identified as savages are people who are in this time, which was a 2020 promo. It was obviously, they were talking about when COVID was in its onset.
Mm-hmm.
And these individuals who were called by early colonizers savages, had their own public health policy about how they wanted to deal with COVID and to separate and to follow science guidelines and whatnot. Savages. Long before these Yahoo fucking, like, people, anti-vaxxers and everybody else who is so, like, they're just following their community narrative. But, like, what community is that? What community is self-destructive? That's a weird community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to see how they kind of celebrated and, how they did. So those are some ideas, right? Like, we have some ideas about how to do this. Like, I think we can, like, we have our own idea about intention setting, which is a function of especially the Yule fire. I mean, but that's not just a Yule thing. That's like firekeeper knowledge from year round, but like the idea is that the fire is a, both a consuming entity, but it is also something that releases, right? And it releases into the air, it releases heat, it releases light, it releases life, right? But it also consumes. So we use that space to both give it the things that we want to release from our consciousness, right? And we write it down and we release it into the consuming flame.
Yeah.
But we set intentions that we give to the fire to lift, to elevate, to rise like the smoke, but at the same time to be the light giver, right? So we set that intention. That's why the fire is an important part of this. But so too, as you can see in different spaces, is dance, is drumming,
Yes.
is movement around the circles, and is also chanting, invocation, incantation. So there are all of these things that we have to practice. So these are some ideas, right, that you can do. You can do in your own community space. um it can't always be around a fire, whether it's in a fire pit, a bonfire, a steel drum off of the West Side Highway, like whatever it is, there is a fire and human beings gather around it. So gather around something, whatever the fire may be. The fire could also be a table at Applebee's around a lot of beer. I don't know, but like just gather with people, gather with your people, gather with people that aren't yours, whatever it is, gather and set a different kind of intention. Right? Set an intention that is one that pierces through the veil of illusion that we've been sleeping behind for generations, right? Like let's try something different. And I'm speaking specifically to in the context of this country, across socioeconomic boundaries, across racial and ethnic boundaries. Like poor to rich in this country, fuck Christmas. And I'm not talking about well, I'm Jewish, I don't celebrate. Yeah, well, you do Hanukkah and you do whatever you celebrate. It is, if it's driven by a capitalist structure, fuck it. Right? Fuck Christmas and fuck other celebrations like that. So that's one narrative. I thought we could also, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was thinking about the fire too, like, and even just, Yule and specifically the solstice, like the importance I find, or the meaning that I, find or view this time with it is remembering like the sun, the fires of that, the like life-giving fires of that, but like the fire that's in me, the passion and for life. And that's the whole thing that with my daughter, that where she was feeling like a lack of connection with that, just like you, the whole act for me of starting a fire and like, the whole building of it, the whole cleaning of things and like building of it and getting it to light, and the work you have to do around. I love doing it in the rain, like, because it's just like that echoes life to me in the work that we put in to keep our fires lit, or to relight them, or to like all those things that you, if you're thinking about like lighting a fire, like all of that to me is representative of like a deep just like the light of humanity, which is not, we're not talking about Christmas lights, and like it's a deeper thing. And so that's
You mean
synchronous.
Jesus?
Listen, no, that's not what I mean.
Oh my God. Well, that was so offensive for us to do. I just said Jesus and we both laughed. That's terrible.
I laughed because I knew that my face like dropped immediately. Like, bruh, I'm not talking about that. But it's because, and I'm not, because there's people who are gonna watch this and like, they're not gonna be like, yeah, like screw this belief, that's not what I'm saying right now. What I'm saying is like, even beyond that, buying shit is like the king of Christmas, and existing in that mania. And I'm like sliding backwards out of that.
Yeah, and I am far more direct about it. Fuck Christmas. Right? And in that vein, folks, as we close out for tonight, we're going to take a little look at the dark origins of Santa and his elves. This is what I think and would hope that in Christmas gathering spaces everywhere that these things would invade. But alas, I don't think that's really in the cards. But oh, how I wish this is what Christmas could look like.
In Turkey, who was legendary. He would leave gifts under the sacred tree on his birthday if you had been good, but if you had not, his Krampuses would either abduct you or beat you.
Abduct all the little white kids.
Saint Nicholas supposedly captured Satan.
Look at that.
And called him by various names.
Krampus.
Baalzebub, Zwart Dite, or the Black Peter, and Neck Ruprecht. These were just
that's a little
some
racist.
Of the names.
Black Peter.
In some of the cultures,
Zwarte
Santa Claus was dropped altogether.
Yeah.
And the only remaining figure was the Krampus.
Santa Claus was dropped altogether, and only Krampus exists.
Weihnachtsmann, which means Santa Claus in the Germanic languages.
Ugh, so
in other words, in some cultures, Santa Claus is known to be
look at him riding the broom
himself, who is the Krampus.
Look at that.
Now let us look at some clips of Santa Claus in Europe. But be warned, some of these images may be disturbing.
For white American capitalists. Look at this.
Oh my gosh.
Look at them.
It's Yeti. Oh shoot.
So fun.
Oh, this is what they're saying is disturbing? I found that last picture disturbing.
Exactly. Look at this.
Oh my God.
Look at this idea. Look at this kid. This kid is, look at him crying. He's getting beat. Look at him crying. Oh my God. You should be crying for that bowl cut. Look at that. Look at these dudes just sitting in the living room.
And it's like, look at him up.
And there's kids. Look at them. Oh, you.
Take one of them.
I want to. I like this guy. Look at him. Who's he?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He's feeling it.
Look at these. They're just in the kitchen, like sitting with the family. Look at these children. They're like, look at him. Look, this guy's like, I am moving over. I think some places, some states, that will be child abuse. Look at these things, dude. Oh
my God. He's like, no.
I think, you know who that was? That's Frau Pexta. That's the mother Krampus. She's a witch. That was cool. Look at this. Look at this.
This kid knows they're getting
this
presents.
Kid, I know.
It's like, okay.
He's already. Cool. He's like, I want to hug Krampus. That kid's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
He's gonna grow up to be an awesome kid. That's a little racist.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's adorable.
Because it's like
dude.
they're like not freaked out.
Instead of Santa's lap, they're sitting on Krampus's lap. Look at them. Look at their little.
What is
Okay,
that?
they don't have to be bloody. That's a little ridiculous. This is questionable. These are okay. These are fine.
These are the satanic origins of the anglo-sized Santa Claus, who is Sinterklaas, and his elves.
it's like Sinterklaas, like Saint Nicholas, and his Krampus, like gang, which became Santa Claus and the elves. It's so cheesy. It's so cheesy.
Yeah, that's how you make it cute.
That's how you make it cute.
Nothing dark.
Yeah. All right, folks. I think that's it for us. Long night, long stream. So it was good. Hope it was good for you. We are going to be going into the 23rd as a continuation of this vibe that we're taking, and we're going to continue all the intention that we set tonight into that space for the Community Dharma Exchange and for the Humanist Nightmare Fuel as it moves into 2023. And we have some exciting things coming that I think will make their way into some special streams, or maybe some other media, some other content that we'll be putting up on channel, and that will have to do with a program, a project that we are working with in community that is going to be called the Sweetwater Community Organization. So there will be more to come on that, but this is how we're going to do it, right? There's a thing that is called the lunation of Capricorn. Please don't ask what that means. It is just a cool sounding thing. And it's part of like astrology and, those kind of zodiac charts and things like that. And here's the thing, folks, you can think it's horseshit. You can think it's woo. We're not trying to deal with it as a predictive or necessarily even explanatory concept. All of these things are lenses of belief, right? It's how we perceive things, it's how we look at things, it's how we make sense of things. So we have to address all of them in fair ways, right? And to look at value that can be derived from certain ways of organizing information. You can think of it that way, or whether it's just really horseshit, but especially if it's damaging and if it is harmful and it is misguided, right? So I don't think we're necessarily getting into any of that territory with this, but this idea of the lunation of Capricorn is this, right? Friday night is 2 days from now. Tonight's a Wednesday night on December 21st. Friday night is the exact new moon. Like, as nothing in the sky as it can get is where it's going to be, right? And that's December 23rd, when the sun and moon align in the sign of Capricorn. So again, it's a meaning-making framework, right? This is called a lunation. It symbolizes a new beginning, new moon, new beginning, right? In the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn, blah, blah, blah. So it's a time during which we can focus on some of the constructive traits of the sign of the goat. I guess goats are tenacious, resourceful, disciplined, wise, ambitious, prudent, constant, and consider how to positively incorporate these qualities into our lives. That sounds fine to me. I think that's a really cool thing to be able to go do. I think if you guys want to, you should do something like that too. In fact, you don't have to wait for that particular time and date and this and that. You don't even have to worry about the date if you just do it every day, right? Like you could just do that, right? But this is ritual, and ritual is also important because it brings us into a connective space, and it's fun and it's cool to do together, and that's what you should really kind of try to do, right? What do you do usually? You drink together, you eat together, you fuck together, you party together, you work together. But then when you're home with supposedly the people that you want to be around, everyone's separate and they don't do anything. So in the places where you like, try something different, right? Like, try coming together with the people that you seem to be together with. Even if you're just sitting, if your togetherness is sitting on the porch every evening at the same time with your clan and just talking shit, talk shit, but also set intention, right? Because we can focus on practical and attainable long-term goals in this space, prepare for the future, nurture our dreams in a realistic manner. This is supposedly all called potent Capricorn energy, and it gives us the chance to create some serious order in our lives. It's time to make some solid plans and to set the stage for reaping the rewards from the new beginnings, as little or big as they may be. So this sounds good. How about for you, Nadine?
Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds like a good thing to do, and have fun doing it with all the things that make us feel good, like burning this and burning that and stoking that fire and drumming that drum and dancing a little bit and you know, drinking and being in revelry, because you should party if you're setting intentions for cool shit. Like that's a good thing. That's a good thing to celebrate. So to everyone, a happy celebratory dying of the sun, and see you
on the other side
as the sun rises. That's been Humanist Nightmare Fuel, folks, and we'll see you in 2023.
All right.